Welcome back to another Beyond the Veil Stories video. Today we'll be exploring another one of my personal stories, The Hound of Bitter Hollow. If you enjoy the story, please leave a like, a comment telling me your favorite part of the story, and subscribe to the channel for any future videos. Now let's take a journey beyond the veil. The woods around Bitter Hollow were old, older than the town itself. Dense pines strangled the sunlight, casting a permanent gloom across the forest floor. Strange stories had long drifted around the area. Hunters disappearing without a trace, strange howls at night, and sightings of something moving just at the edges of lantern light. But it was the children that whispered of the Hound, a creature neither fully dog nor man, a beast that could mimic voices and smell fear like fresh blood. Eric Lawson, a forest ranger, had lived in Bitter Hollow his entire life. He didn't believe in fairy tales or cryptids, but he couldn't deny that the woods sometimes felt off. Tonight was one of those nights. As the wind cut through the trees, it carried with it a sound that raised the hair on the back of his neck, a low, shivering howl that echoed too long, as if it wasn't coming from just one throat. His radio crackled. "Eric, you there? There's a report of strange noises around Black Pines Trail. A couple of campers said they saw something moving through the trees. Might just be a bear." "Got it. I'll check it out," Eric answered, though something in his gut told him this wasn't a bear. The words "strange noises" stuck with him, gnawing at his thoughts. As he strapped on his flashlight and pulled his jacket tighter against the cold, he felt the weight of the forest pressing down on him. He'd walked the Black Pines Trail 1,000 times, but tonight the trees looked different, twisted, as though they'd grown hungry. The drive up to the trailhead was uneventful, but the woods felt alive with whispers. Shadows slithered between the trees, and every crunch of his boots on the ground seemed louder than it should have been. The campers were gone by the time Eric arrived. Only a half-dead campfire and the soft imprint of a tent in the grass remained. They must have packed up in a hurry, and judging by the scraps they left behind, they weren't interested in taking their time. Eric swept his flashlight through the forest. "Hello? Anybody out here?" The beam trembled slightly as it cut through the blackness. Silence answered him. Then, just as he turned to leave, there it was again, a low, eerie howl, rising and falling like the wind brushing through bone-dry reeds. It was close. Eric turned, heart hammering. His flashlight caught movement between the trees. A figure, tall, lean, and shambling, moved through the undergrowth. For a moment, he thought it was a person, but the way it moved was all wrong. Too fast, yet too deliberate, like a predator toying with prey. Its skin, pale as fog, shimmered faintly as if wet, and it had limbs that were too long, too jointed. And then it turned toward him. The thing wasn't a person, though it wore the semblance of one. Its face was stretched and taut, with yellow, glassy eyes that reflected his flashlight beam like a cat's. A crooked, unnatural smile split its face from ear to ear. Eric froze. His mind scrambled to make sense of what he was seeing, but the pieces refused to fit. That wasn't human. It wasn't animal either. The Hound. He remembered the stories, how it lured people into the woods by mimicking familiar voices, how it stalked them through the forest until they were too tired to run. He hadn't believed the old legends, but now the thing stood before him, and he knew. He backed away slowly, his flashlight trembling in his hand. But then, the Hound opened its mouth and spoke. "Eric," it whispered in a voice that wasn't quite human. It sounded familiar, but wrong, like someone speaking through a cracked mirror. Come back to me." It was his wife's voice. His breath hitched, and for a split second, panic clawed at his chest. His wife had died 5 years ago in a car accident. The rational part of his brain screamed that it couldn't be her, but the sound of her voice, so hauntingly accurate, paralyzed him. The creature took a step closer, tilting its head like a curious animal. "Come back, Eric. Come back home." He stumbled backward, catching himself on a tree. His flashlight flickered, the beam sputtering as the batteries threatened to die. "You're not real," he whispered to himself, heart pounding. "You're not real." The hound smiled wider, the skin around its mouth tearing slightly from the strain. Blood, black and oily, dripped down its chin. It loped closer, now moving on all fours, each limb bending unnaturally. Eric did the only thing he could. He ran. The forest swallowed him whole as he plunged deeper into the woods, branches whipping at his face and roots threatening to trip him with every step. Behind him, the hound gave chase, its howling laughter slicing through the night. "Eric," it called in his wife's voice. "Why are you running? I'm waiting for you." He pushed himself harder, lungs burning, legs aching, until the forest opened up and he saw the ranger station's light ahead. Safety. He could make it. He had to. But as he neared the clearing, his foot caught on a root and he fell hard to the ground. Pain exploded through his ankle and he cried out, trying desperately to crawl forward. The station was only a few yards away, but it might as well have been miles. The hound was there before he could move. It stood over him, towering and grotesque, its breath hot and rancid against his skin. "Eric," it whispered, leaning closer. Its glassy eyes shimmered with amusement. "You shouldn't have come out here." With a snarl, it lunged. 2 weeks later, the ranger station was unusually quiet when Sheriff Bill Harper arrived to investigate. Eric Lawson hadn't shown up for work in days, and no one had been able to reach him. His truck was still parked outside the trailhead, covered in morning dew. The sheriff called out Eric's name, but only silence answered him. The station was cold, and the faint smell of rotting meat lingered in the air. His flashlight swept over the cabin's walls and then stopped. Something had been written in the dust-covered window with what looked like a finger. "Help me." Harper swallowed, unease prickling at the back of his neck. He checked the logbook by the radio and saw that Eric's last recorded entry mentioned investigating strange noises at Black Pines Trail. That was the last anyone had heard from him. As Harper turned to leave, his radio crackled to life. Static buzzed, followed by a voice, faint, distorted, but unmistakable. "Bill, it's Eric. I need help. I'm lost. Out in the woods. Please." The sheriff froze, his blood turning cold. The voice sounded off. Too slow, too deliberate, like someone trying too hard to sound human. And then came the final words, whispered so softly that they barely registered over the static. "Come find me." Harper stared out the cabin window toward the woods, where the darkness seemed thicker than usual, as if it was waiting. Without thinking, he reached for his flashlight. The radio crackled one last time, and the voice whispered again, soft, pleading, and full of quiet malice. "Please come home." The sheriff stepped out into the night, the forest swallowing him whole. And behind him, the ranger station's radio clicked off on its own. I know today's video is really short, but thank you for watching the video. Please remember to tell me if you enjoyed the video in the comments, like, and subscribe to help us reach 1,000 subscribers within the next 5 months. Also, are you looking for a community of like-minded horror enthusiasts? Come and join our Discord community. Keep up to date with when we post, share your own stories and sightings, and just have fun. Until the next time we journey beyond the veil.